So I thought that breastfeeding was going to be this natural, beautiful experience that I was going to be able to do with my baby right from the beginning. But you know what? I was wrong. It was actually really, really hard. So in this video, we share some of the things that we learned along the way as we nursed our babies. So if you are a new mom and you're thinking about nursing your baby, or you're about to have a little one yourself and are considering it, this is the video for you.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Mommies of Jen. I'm Vanessa.
And I'm Samantha.
And we make videos on how to teach, love, and care for your kids. So if you're interested in being a part of our channel, go ahead and hit subscribe and ring that bell so that you can get more videos like this with expert tips from teachers and moms. By the end of this video, you're going to hear about the bumps along the way that we had during our breastfeeding journey and how we overcame that.
So, man, was it hard, especially in the beginning. Actually, breastfeeding for me was so hard in the beginning that Omar, my fiance, even suggested that I stop doing it altogether. He knew all of the benefits of it, but just to see me struggle so much, he was like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. I don't want to see you in this much pain. Let's just start formula. But it's something that I really was committed to because of all of the benefits. So I wanted to share, and disclaimer here that this is just our experience, and we definitely encourage you to have a talk with your local lactation expert or your pediatrician before implementing any of our suggestions. So without further ado, let's get straight into it.
So one of the most common problems that you kind of just face in the very beginning of breastfeeding is the latch.
So Ethan is 6 months old now, and he's really great at latching on, but this wasn't always the case. So the first thing that's difficult about it is learning how to latch. So your baby needs to learn how to latch, and you need to learn what a proper latch is as well. So there are a couple of things that can help with this. So the first thing is the hold. There's different ways you could hold your baby in order for you and your baby to be comfortable. Some of my favorite holds is the cradle, right? Where you hold your baby like this, and that's one. Another one is actually, I'm wrong. This is the cross cradle. The cradle is more like a cradle the baby, right? So the cradle, the cross cradle, or the football hold. Those were my favorite. Yeah, those are the three that they taught me in the hospital. Later on, another favorite hold of mine is the side lay, where you're laying on one side of the bed and your baby is laying next to you. So play around with these and try a couple of different holds, because you'll want to be comfortable since you're going to be spending many hours holding your baby.
Absolutely, Samantha. I have to agree with all the different holds. You have to give it a try and find what is best for you. So another tip for the latch is know what a good latch looks like. Yeah,
so before I breastfed, I thought that I had the misconception that as long as the baby had the nipple in his mouth, that's a proper latch. But it's actually, they have to have almost the entire areola inside of their mouth as much as possible for that to be a proper latch. So the way that my lactation expert told me to do this is to hold the baby in the back of the head. So you're holding the baby's head in your palm, and you are tickling the top of their lip with your nipple, and when they open their mouth really, really wide, then you kind of like the baby onto your nipple. Like this.
Yeah, you literally have to do. I remember the nurse with Noah forced him. Like she grabbed his head from the back and she basically forced him a little bit.
Yeah, so to get as much of that nipple into their mouth, and their lips, when their mouth is on top of your nipple and your areola, should kind of look like a fish. You know, the fish. Like the puckered out lips. That's how their lips should look to tell you that that's a proper latch. And then you're good. So if your little baby looks like a little fishy on your nipple, then you're good to go.
All right, guys, so moving on. One of the things that you have to do, and this is with anything that you do with kids or even just as adults, you have to give it time.
Yeah, so be patient. This is, your baby is learning and you are learning. So be patient and don't panic. Just be patient and be calm and know that this is difficult but natural. So eventually both of you are going to get there.
Yeah, and when we talk about giving it time, it happens within days.
Yeah.
This is not something that's going to take weeks. It's going to happen within days because the baby's going to want to eat.
And don't get me wrong, days in the beginning days feels like forever.
Yeah.
So know that we hear you, we know, but it will get better.
So the second bump along the way would be your supply.
Yeah, so when we say supply, first you're worried about not having enough. Your milk hasn't come in yet, you're worried about your baby not having enough milk, and you're maybe starting to panic on whether or not your baby is getting enough or you're having enough supply. And there are a couple of tips that we mentioned in our first breastfeeding video about how to build that supply that I'm going to mention again here. But some of the things you can do is drink lots of water, have oatmeal for breakfast, but really in those beginning days is to nurse often and be patient, because before you know it, you're gonna have another problem. And that is when your milk comes in. Because when your milk comes in, then that's when engorgement happens. And for me, it happened really fast, and it was really painful. Now this may vary from woman to woman, but for me, it was super painful. My breasts were like out to here and super hard, super hot. And I felt like Pamela Anderson. It was just... you just have to laugh about it because it was just terrible. So where first you're worried about not having enough, then you're worried about having too much. And honestly, I had to call my lactation expert, and that's something I really recommend before leaving the hospital. Get the number of the lactation experts at your hospital. Every hospital has them. So I called the lactation expert and I asked them, like, what should I do? And what they recommended was hot showers before I nursed, because the warmth promoted milk flow, and then cold ice packs, cold compresses when I wanted to stop the milk. So I tried that at first, and it did offer some relief. She also recommended that I pump, but not too much, because then you don't want to trick your body into making more milk and that backfiring on you. So I did do that. Again, some relief, but through trial and error, the only thing that really helped, again, mentioned this in my last video, and I know it sounds funny, is a hot booby bath.
Yeah, actually, I love that advice, and a few of our viewers did too. So hot boob bath is the way to go.
And I want to go into this just a little more in depth than in the last video, because the way to do this is what helps is both the warmth of the water. You take a basin, you fill it with warm water, and also your position. Because you are leaned over the basin and you're kind of like in an incline, that promotes the milk flow. So that position is really important. If you could just imagine like dipping a tea bag, that's how you want to be positioned. I know it's funny, but trial and error. I'm doing it for you guys. I'm doing it for you.
And just to go along the ways with supply, in the beginning, women tend to be very confused because in the beginning, you don't have any milk that is coming out. And then that's because in the very beginning, you produce something called colostrum. So that is what's actually bringing the nutrients to your baby. So in those first, day or two, maybe even 3 days, you're not gonna actually see milk. It's more something called colostrum.
Yeah, so, and all the baby really needs is a drop of colostrum to give them everything they need for hours. So don't panic, because it will come in, and then before you know it, it will all be behind you.
All right, guys, so the third bump along the way would be cluster feeding.
Okay, so you fed your baby, and 20 minutes later, your baby is screaming. Why is the baby screaming? Can't be hungry. I just fed him 20 minutes ago. You're wrong. The baby is hungry. So what cluster feeding is, it happens mostly in the evenings in the beginning, where the feeds are very close together, within an hour apart from each other, and your baby wants to nurse constantly for hours on end, and which can be really frustrating and really tiring for you, because it's usually in the evening where both you and baby are exhausted already, right? So my solution here is not really a solution, it's just a coping mechanism. What I recommend and what I did was just accept it, make yourself comfortable. It's really your body's way, or your baby's way of communicating with your body that it needs more milk, and that your body needs to create more milk for your baby. So it's a really important part of actually building your supply up in those beginning days, and also every growth spurt. that your baby goes through. So what I did is I stopped fighting it and I found a comfortable spot on my couch. I got a list of recommendations of Netflix movies from my friends, and I made sure Omar knew that he was going to be bringing me my water and my food and anything that I need. So have your partner really be your ally here in helping you out, because you're doing the heavy lifting, especially in those beginning days. And just take it easy and try to enjoy and try to relax.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I had a similar experience with Jade, and I'm not sure if that was cluster feeding or not, but the second day that she was born, she would not let me go, and it was 5.5 hours of torture. And we would remove her, like my husband would come over and remove her, and she would be screaming at the top of her lungs, and she just wanted to be there. And that really just helped also to just get that milk supply going. But I wish that I would have had my phone or an iPad at the time, just being able to relax and watch something, and instead I was miserable because I was exhausted and I just wanted out of the situation. And it's just very difficult. So that's actually a very great tip.
Yeah.
So the fourth bump along the way, unfortunately, is the one that I hate the most, is sore nipples.
Yeah. So this is something that your body is getting used to. Your nipples have to adjust also, right? So in those beginning days, it's really, you can experience a lot of soreness. And there were two things that really helped me when it comes to sore nipples. And one is nipple cream. So nipple cream is great. You can put some on that whole area, and it really helps. And you don't have to wash it off, which is great, which is what my lactation consultant told me, is that you don't have to wash it off before the baby feeds. So that's one less thing that I have to worry about when I'm nursing. Another thing is that you could also use express breast milk for that area, and that also causes some relief. And that's really, the express breast milk I preferred over the nipple cream, because I found the nipple cream to be really sticky for me. So I only used it when I was really desperate for some relief. So that was my experience. And I know Vanessa experienced maybe a more intensified version of sore nipples than I did. I don't know. Should you share?
So Noah was a biter. Ouch. It was really just terrible in the beginning. And one of the things that one of my very good friends recommended was to buy a nipple guard. So it's just like a little plastic shield that goes over your nipple, and when they suck, it alleviates the pain a little bit. So you're gonna definitely wanna have that at hand. And I only used it whenever I felt that it was too sore. And the final bump along the way is actually one that I think all mothers can relate to, is whether or not your baby is feeding enough.
Yeah, so this is something especially for nursing moms, because we can't look at a bottle. It's not like when you look at a bottle and it has how many ounces your baby is consuming. You don't know how much your baby is really getting. Worrying about whether or not your baby is getting enough. And I think that mommy worry is a real thing, and it changes along the way. And honestly, it's a new emotion that I'm still getting used to, that constant worry about my child. But I want to tell all of you that just try your best to not worry too much, because honestly, as long as your baby is having wet diapers and dirty diapers, then you're good to go. Because in the beginning, like we mentioned before, it really takes very little for your baby to get everything that he or she needs. Just that drop of colostrum is enough. So don't worry, your baby will learn, and you will learn. And watch the wet diapers and dirty diapers. What we used to do is we used to keep a notepad right by the changing table, and just tally every time that we changed a wet or dirty diaper. And as long as that is going along the age limit of the baby, then your baby is fine and getting enough. We'll link a couple of resources below that has guidelines for you and how many diapers that you should be changing a day. Another thing that you will learn along the way is what it sounds like when your baby is actually drinking. So you'll notice that there's a difference between like just the baby suckling and kind of using your nipple as comfort, and actually the sound of them drinking and taking in breast milk. So you pay attention to your baby, and if you see kind of like their cheeks fill up and the sound of swallowing, then your baby is drinking.
Yeah, also you'll see the milk actually running down their little face. Is so cute.
Yeah, so just pay attention, and you will eventually learn, like, this is what it looks like when my baby is drinking, and feel confident that they're getting everything they need.
All right, guys, so just to summarize kind of the bumps along the way in the journey of breastfeeding is the latch, the milk supply, cluster feeding, sore nipples, and worrying that your baby is not eating enough.
And we say this not to scare you away from breastfeeding, but to encourage you and to share with you and to express our complete faith in you being able to breastfeed your baby. And we want to hear from you. Are you experiencing some of the same things? Do you have any fears about this? And what was your experience? Leave a comment below.
Don't forget to subscribe if you're a new viewer and ring the bell so then you can get more videos like this.
And we'll see you next time.